All right. Good evening and good night, and welcome to the It's Your Perspective Talk Show. It is Thursday, January 21st, 2016. My name is David, a.k.a. Kimba, a.k.a. Christian, alongside
Bingy Soup.
Yeah, Soup. We're back again, man.
Live and direct, yo.
That's how it goes, man. Just want to say that this is the It's Your Perspective Talk Show, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 p.m. until. We do have a telephone number, 340-201-9005. You can also text us on that number as well. But most importantly, you have to go to our website, streaminglivefromthevi.com. We do have email as well, Soup, streaminglivefromthevi@yahoo.com, man, as well. Our guest tonight, he has been here many, many times. He's heard me say this many, many times. We are in a high-tech, low-tech studio coming to you from an undisclosed location here in St. Croix, Virgin Islands. No radio, TV, internet only, which means that you have to get your iPhone, your Android, your Apple, your iPad, your tablet, all that stuff, your Mac PC or your browser, and you'll be able to see the show tonight. Just go to our website, streaminglivefromthevi.com. Definitely want to give a shout out to CHS class in 1982. Big ups to the whole entire crew there. Hit us up, man. Let us know you're out there. Give us a call on the show here, 340-201-9005. We're on Twitter as well. Hit us up there at VI Perspective. Tweet with us. And Soup, moving straight forward and up. The show's mission is just to inform, entertain, and empower everyone. Soup, you ready?
Yes, I.
Yes, I, man. Bless that mic, man.
All greetings to Kidamawi Impa Haile Selassie the First. Jah Rastafari. The greatest secret in life is that reality is nothing more than illusion. The physical world does not exist outside of our own belief system and the filter of our own mind. We are, in fact, subparticles of Jah experiencing creation itself. But as subparticles, we have swayed over this creation. Everything you have experienced in life, every event, occurrence, object, and person is nothing more than a figment of your own thoughts, beliefs, and words. The problem is, most of us are still asleep. The problem is, most of us are still asleep. When you understand this, your entire world shifts, and you come to realize the true meaning of life is thus like a lucid dream. We have total control.
Yes, that's Soup, man. Thanks for blessing us from day one, back in April of 2014. Soup has been blessing us. And we've been getting them blessings, you know?
Every time.
And that's how it goes, man. So what I'll do, man, it gives me great honor to say welcome back to our studio, Arthur Gary James. There he is right there. Wave to the crowd. They are seeing you right now. So how you doing, Gary? Happy New Year and Merry Christmas and all that good stuff. Let me go ahead there.
I'm glad to be here and to know equipment show.
Hold on there, Gary. Hold on there. Let's take a quick break here. Your mic's not coming in good. We'll be right back. Stand by. All right. We're back. Had a little technical difficulty there, Soup, but we got it all straightened out.
Yes, I.
As I was saying there, Arthur Gary James is in the studio. There he is. Welcome back. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, all that good stuff, man. So how you doing?
Excellent, my brother. Excellent. Pleased to be here as usual.
Okay, man.
This is my home away from home.
Yes, all right. It was a pleasure to have you. You know?
And Happy New Year to all. I hope that your New Year's resolutions are achievable and that you realize them. My New Year's resolutions are virtually impossible to achieve. But by way of full disclosure, I won't undertake an enterprise unless I believe it's important and that it's virtually unachievable, impossible to achieve. And these are the kind of things that fascinate me and inspire me to move forward. So therefore, with the grace of God and good health, we are off and running in 2016. This is a particularly interesting year because in the United States and the Virgin Islands, it is an election year. Election years are typically dynamic, informative, entertaining, and revelatory. Election 2016 in both theaters, New York City in particular and the Virgin Islands, portends interesting dynamics in all categories, and also this year may dynamically impact both political parties going forward. The presidential nomination process is underway in the states, and the national elections, as you probably know, generate the most voter turnout as compared to local, congressional, and gubernatorial elections. And presidential elections generally provide a portal to the social and political trajectory of the country, which looks very interesting these days. American political or electoral politics in general and traditional political party politics are both on dubious grounds in terms of national as well as local politics. The comparison between national politics and state politics in America is an interesting exercise because the current political and social dichotomy between the federal and state governments, respectively, are a carryover from the Civil War, states' rights, and federal government narrative. So things haven't really changed too much.
New names,
Change has been modulated.
New names, but same policies.
And so scholars continue to argue that the North may have won the ultimate battle that concluded the Civil War, but a persuasive argument can be made that the South won the Civil War in terms of the political ground. For example, the success of the South on the political ground following the Civil War was the dismantling of the period of Reconstruction. Reconstruction provided for federal troops to enforce the civil rights of African Americans after the Civil War. A political deal was struck in the presidential election of 1876, which is recorded in political history as the Great Compromise. The Great Compromise called for the dismantling of Reconstruction. Now, the presidential election deadlock in 2000, the year 2000, between Al Gore and George W. Bush, that decided the election by the Supreme Court, was not the first time the presidential election was not determined, a winner of the presidential election was not determined by the outcome of the election. In 1876, the election of Rutherford Hayes, the Republican Party candidate, was the ultimate winner of the presidency as a result of this great compromise. Now, briefly, the great compromise that enabled the GOP candidate to be victorious was that he agreed to call back federal troops, thereby dismantling Reconstruction. And the black community was then left without the protection of the federal government. Hence, their civil rights were not enforced. In the wake of the demise of Reconstruction, Jim Crow laws, black codes were enacted, and the Ku Klux Klan and other white supremacist organizations and systems were put in place. My larger point is that the social and political facts on the ground, from emancipation to the civil rights successes of the 19th and 20th century, did not substantially change the relative condition of the black community at large. There were a few isolated success stories which still occur, but by and large, nothing changed. Conditions were modulated. And as we analyze the state of black America here in the second decade of the 21st century, our observation is that the status quo has not changed for black folks in any meaningful way. The status quo continues to be modulated by the powers that be. But the community at large somehow believes that meaningful change is occurring, but it's never realized on the ground. After the dismantling of Reconstruction, the imposition of Jim Crow laws and black codes were enforced by the terrorism of white supremacists, and these forces ruled many states, particularly in the South, but not isolated to the South. Not until the advent of the modern civil rights movement and the enactment of the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Acts of 1964 and 1965, respectively, did a measure of social political success occur. But what happened to it? Major social and political events occurred, improving the situation during the 19th and 20th centuries, that demonstrate without equivocation the consequential impact that states' rights issues that informed and animated the Civil War remain a social, political factor on the ground. That's currently what's going on within both political parties as we speak, but particularly the Republican Party with the social conservative wing that controls things. We have all heard of the Southern strategy, silent majority, and social conservative that are code terms that advance and perpetuate bigotry, discrimination, and white supremacy. We're currently beyond the midpoint of the second decade of the 21st century, and state rights issues remain in political juxtaposition to the federal government narrative. And these two political concepts continue to animate national electoral politics. But all of that's over our heads for the most part, because we deal with issues, right? Okay. But apart from the spectacle, the political spectacle, and unfolding political expose relative to the nature of electoral politics and National Republican Party process, citizens in general participate in the National Republican Party process. And our response and participation is based on convenient political vagaries, slogans, misinformation, disinformation, and philosophical inversions. We'll talk about these vagaries, etc., during follow-up conversations, but not now. At the end of the day, the voting public is used in the process as political pawns in a theatrical enterprise. Political minorities, particularly black folks, are marginalized in the process, and the African American community in particular is the weakling in the political game as compared to other political minorities. Yes, I'm asserting that the African American community at large is the political weakling in terms of political leverage as compared to other more recent political minorities in America. We are at the bottom of the pecking order. I'm not going to digress on my assertion at this time because I intend to devote some conversations to the state of black politics going forward. But I'm going to use this opportunity to highlight my book, which discusses black politics in depth. The book is entitled Black Politics 2.0. We are stuck on Politics 101. We need 2.0. For those who are interested in reading the book, the chapters are accessible for download over the internet at Black Politics 2, number 2, blackpolitics number 2.com. And a printed copy of the book is also available for purchase from the website and also at Amazon. Briefly, by way of the two main characters, the book asserts that black politics, including leaders, the fellowship, and voters in general, are engaged in electoral politics 101, which is the basis of our problem. Political politics 101 is the basis of how we do our politics, how our politics has been done, since emancipation to date. We haven't changed that. And Politics 101 has proven to be insufficient and sophomoric. That's why we're on the bottom of the pecking order, although we are the oldest minority in America and arguably, in my opinion, still the most numerous. Of course, they say Hispanics outnumber blacks, but Hispanic is a language. Black is a phenotype, skin color. Now, many of the Hispanics, if they didn't open their mouth and speak, you would think they were black. And that is my point. And so statistics and data are conveniently used to perpetuate these vagaries, misinformation, disinformation, and so forth, which is the basis on which we continue to do our politics. To be continued. But stay close, because Black Politics 2.0 is relevant to the electoral political season this year in the States and in the VI. So it will be continued. We'll discuss it in depth as we continue our conversation throughout this election year. Okay, returning to the subject on the table in terms of the 2016 presidential election politics in general and the states' rights and federal government social political juxtaposition in particular, because that's the subtext of what we're going through now. There's a lot of entertainment with Trump and Hillary and all the other candidates and blah, blah, blah. That is the fodder. The subtext is the states' rights and federal government controversy, which the white folk are in contention with each other about. We observe that the social and political wrestling match between the relevant political parties and their respective constituents continue the perennial political tug of war around states' rights. States' rights was the issue around slavery. You know, the states' rights said, promoted slavery, and you federal government guys, stay out of it. That is the deal then, and it's the deal now. But it's a little bit more sophisticated, subtle, sublime, but we still do the same thing because we're consumers, participants, pawns, and emotionally connected to the partisan political process, to our detriment. While the states' rights social conservative movement of the 19th century was peculiar to the Democratic Party, the last 40-odd years of the 20th century, the social conservative political torch was handed off successfully to the Republican Party between the 1960s and the 1970s. Just as the civil rights successes occurred during that period, the conservatives that ran the Democratic Party moved their conservatism to the Republican Party. So it's the same old, same old. Currently, the social conservative movement is firmly entrenched in Republican Party politics with a vengeance. And the political advent of Donald Trump as a candidate for the GOP nomination is a case in point. Specifically, the ideological confusion in the GOP generated a political leadership vacuum, and the billionaire tycoon, along with his reality TV marketing expertise, stole the political or the politics and media show. Everything revolves around Trump. Trump is a Johnny-come-lately to the Republican Party, and his social conservative positioning in the GOP is dubious at best. For most of his adult life, Trump was a registered Democrat, and he contributed handsomely to the coffers of liberal politicians and liberal causes. Trump has been in the past a financial stakeholder in the process with the laudable objective of advancing his business and economic interests domestically and internationally. That is his political MO. That has been his political MO. Some suggest it still is. And whatever the outcome of the nomination, and if he gets it, the election, it's a win-win situation for him, whether he wins or loses. That's how the scenario is set up in our view. This is the first time the billionaire real estate mogul has engaged the electoral process as a partisan role player. First time. And he's doing it to the bone. Trump embodies that axiom that there is little, if any, substantial difference, political differences, at the macro level in political party politics. It's the same thing at the top of the political apex. Same cats. And Trump, by his own admission, made substantial financial contributions to candidates on both political aisles as a standard business practice, which makes sense because they do politics to protect and advance their economic interests. We do politics because we're into leadership. We're leaders. We don't do the economics apart from being wage earners. And as wage earners, we can't substantially impact politics in terms of the economic imperative associated with generating power politics. So we can't do power politics. But I won't take that any further because we get enough feedback on that. Similar to the fact that both the Democrat and Republican Party have a history and legacy of social conservatism and bigotry, prejudice, and white supremacy, Donald Trump's social conservatism mirrors a similar political sensibility well known by the actions and legacy of both parties. Okay. At this point, I can't determine whether Trump is a legitimate political phenomenon, a legitimate political juggernaut, or none of the above. Should Trump prove to be none of the above at the end of the day, then presidential politics and the American electoral system would need to be seriously overhauled. Because, mark you, if the conclusion is none of the above in terms of Trump, then the point will be made crystal clear that a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant billionaire tycoon cannot be stopped from imposing his political will and challenging successfully traditional stakeholders and role players that manage the America idea. And that speaks volumes for the state of black politics and the prospect of our economic, political, and social ascendancy going forward. Unless we realize that we need to change some stuff. Only filthy rich white dudes are capable of pulling that off. Only. Therefore, it remains to be seen how things will shake out at the end of the day as we remain riveted and animated by the unfolding political events in America and indeed the world. While I look forward to the result of the nomination process in the Republican Party with anticipation, great anticipation, I'm enjoying the entertainment qualities as well as the crude and sometimes sophisticated political and philosophical deceptions, because that's what's going on. On the other side of the political aisle, the Sanders campaign for the Democratic presidential nomination reminds me of back in the day when yours truly was a professional community organizer in New York City for the National Welfare Rights Organization, NWRO, an elite organizing cadre that interfaced with all of the civil rights and black power players. The constituents of Senator Sanders reminds me of the Democratic Party coalition, such as it is, of liberals, Democrats, liberals, progressive, leftists, and ultra-leftist components that comprise the grassroots base of the Republican Party. Numerous. This vociferous assemblage of partisan political activists and operatives are perhaps 90% white. This demographic can be compared with the national optics of the political activist community in the party during the 1960s and 70s. I know because I was there. In New York City, the organizing staff was all black, for example. And the New York State delegation was salt and pepper. But the New York State delegation looked like a fly in a glass of milk during national conferences and national retreats, because the political operatives in the civil rights movement who trained black activists and who tried to manipulate black power and black organizations, they were the paternal fathers or teachers of American politics to the minorities. They didn't teach the whole story though. They taught, they taught what they wanted to teach for the benefit of them taking over the Democratic Party from the conservatives. That was the extent to which black folk understood electoral politics. And that hasn't changed. But we'll get into that in greater detail. But with the benefit of the white paternal political and financial leadership, together with the activism of students and local community youth activists, black and white, voter education and registration initiatives were undertaken in target areas to infiltrate the Democrat Party and displace the social conservative control of the party. Together with strategic boycotts, marches, rallies, demonstrations, sit-ins, takeovers, and other tactical political maneuvers by the broad masses, we achieved substantial statutory and legislative advances on behalf of establishing equality and civil rights for African Americans in particular. That's what that whole civil rights scenario was about. Civil rights has now morphed into something else. It's not relevant to the 21st century political and social needs of black folk. The civil rights movement has morphed into minority, civil rights for minority groups. And black folk are the lowest on the totem pole of the minority groups. Affirmative action was to remediate discrimination against African Americans. Currently, affirmative action, or black folk, African Americans, are not the beneficiary of affirmative action. Women, gays, Hispanics, Asians, and they have more leverage to take advantage of affirmative action than blacks do. You see, because black political leaders, of course they're not really leaders, that's another one of those vagaries and misunderstandings. They are representatives. They don't lead you. And if they do, you got it wrong. America is a representative government and they are representatives. But they talk this leadership stuff and we look at them as leaders and treat them as leaders and wait for leaders to lead. But that doesn't occur. See? So we got to get hip to that and stop the tail from wagging the dog. But that is another subject. So it was the marches and rallies and so forth that were tactical, you see, based on the strategic stuff that was done beyond the cameras, that was done on the ground in terms of voter education and voter registration and the personal, intimate formality of organizing. It's not done on the radio or the newspaper or the blah blah. It's another thing. So, but the Democrat Party went through substantial changes after the civil rights legislation was enacted. President Lyndon Johnson predicted that the Democratic Party would lose the South because of civil rights. And his words were prophetic, because that's what happened. Because of civil rights and the infiltration by the progressive component of the Democratic Party, the conservative elements of that controlled the Democrat Party lost their power. But they didn't go away and start calling people names because they understood the process and how it worked and how to use other means, extraordinary means, when necessary to complement their acumen in how the party works, how the process works. We don't know how the process works. We know how the party works. And they understood the process, so they didn't beef. And President Johnson knew what they're going to do, and he predicted it. They took control of the Republican Party. And the Republican Party at that time was progressive. The Republican Party had most blacks. In fact, Martin Luther King was a Republican. He was a Republican because of his father, Daddy King. Daddy King was a Republican. Martin King changed during civil rights because of his relationship with Reverend King. With President Johnson. But Dr. King's main man, David Abernathy, Ralph David Abernathy, stayed a Republican. And for those who are old enough to remember, Ralph David Abernathy was ostracized after the death of Martin Luther King, after the assassination of Martin Luther King. He couldn't get in the groove with those who were now closely associated with civil rights and the legacy of Dr. King. But before Dr. King was assassinated, he was a pariah, a persona non grata among the civil rights leadership orthodoxy because of his stance on the war question. Because Martin saw the hypocrisy, and Martin had a direct link to youth, the youth movement. SNCC was a part of the Southern Christian leadership and other youth groups. And so Stokely and other younger cats were imposing the truth on Martin, and Martin had some moral conflicts that caused him to be recalcitrant on some of his positions. But those details are some details that I happen to know because I was around. I was dealing on an intimate level, not as someone who wanted to run for political office. It was someone who wanted to make a contribution to the greater good. So that's what I had been about. And so I was able to learn some things based upon my extensive experience in this area of electoral politics. But President Carter, back to the issue, President Carter had only one term, and the Republicans had the White House after him, from Reagan onward. They had 3 terms. The Democrats realized that what Johnson predicted was coming true, you see. And so by the time that Bill Clinton was elected in 1992, the Democratic Party had moved to the right because the social conservatives in the GOP were on a political roll in national politics as reactionaries to the civil rights advances and legislation. So in order to be competitive with the GOP in presidential elections, Bill Clinton moved the party to the right, where the party currently remains. The current centrist wing of the Democratic Party is represented by Secretary Hillary Clinton as a relatively new leadership component in the party. And this was codified from the Bill Clinton administration. You see, prior to Bill Clinton's administration, prior to his bid for the presidency, he was head of the Democratic Leadership Council, the DLC. And that group were the engineers of the centrist positioning. In the framework of a centrist leadership, Bill Clinton's administration moved the party to the right because they lost the presidency 3 years in succession. And it wasn't for the fact that Nixon jammed up early on, they would have really, Carter wouldn't have got in. But be that as it may, Senator Clinton represents this centrist wing of the party, which is juxtaposed to the base of the party coalition, and it seems to be showdown time on the immediate horizon. See, so it's not just an internal scenario going on with the Republican Party. There's an internal thing going on with the Democratic Party, because the centrists and the leftist progressive guys, vis-a-vis Sanders, are the majority base of the Democratic Party. And there very well may be a showdown, because that is what it looks like. But these are things that are not played out in the public as much as they are part of the subtext, the backstory, the undercurrent. And so we'll talk about these aspects of electoral politics going forward during this election year. So A titanic internal battle may erupt between the left and right power bases in the Democratic Party. But the black American stalwarts are not likely to be consequential in the outcome either way. Either way the political ball bounces, black folk are inconsequential. Therefore, the black vote will continue to be taken for granted by Democrats, because where are we going to go? If Hillary doesn't win, we got to vote for Sanders. And obviously, this time around, there's no point in even considering the GOP. But even if there was someone of quality on the GOP side, ain't no Democrat going to vote for a Republican. Republicans are the enemy. That's because we're locked into some 101 stuff, politics 101, some sophomoric stuff, and we don't deal with politics from the top. We don't deal with politics in terms of how it works. We deal with politics as consumers and as pawns who participate in the general election. We don't do primary election politics because we have to understand some things in order to do that effectively and to generate the power that is inherent in the party primary process. And we have to understand the structure in order to do that well. You see? And so we can't get to that point yet. But I have faith in my grandchildren. So with the help of these young brothers who I'm inspired by, you're quite welcome, my brother, because you fired me up with this idea about this internet radio thing. You know, so you guys are going to have a hard time getting rid of me, I'm going to tell you. So that's where we're going. But while the GOP presidential nomination process is challenged by the states' rights versus the federal government philosophical and ideological internal struggle, the Democrats, for their part, are engaged in a cathartic exercise that will determine the nature of the party going forward, the party of the people, right? When the political dust settles in the wake of the November election, despite which party is victorious, the status quo will be modulated. But meaningful change will most likely remain elusive. We like it so. We could talk about it, we could beef on the radio and everywhere else. But doing some stuff, that's a different challenge. We're not accustomed to that. We have to come out of our comfort zone in order to do that. But this is our considered judgment on our current status. Therefore, notwithstanding the outcome of the presidential election, our political strategy is formulated and the relevant applications are in process of being deployed in New York City and the Virgin Islands. This is what we are engaged in. We will follow up on what we have observed and come to believe would be appropriate. So we have short-range objectives to be achieved by 2018, 2 years hence. But now we're not going to wait until then. We're doing some work now. As a veteran community organizer, I don't discuss strategy, tactics, or how to in public forums or to the general public. The political organizing is an intimate, hands-on exercise that is undertaken in an informal context during the formative stages. And that's where we are now, the formative stages. Our short-range political organizing objectives embody a 2-year period in the VI and New York City. Therefore, in 2018, we will report on the status of our political initiative in the context of the gubernatorial election in the VI at that time, as well as the legislative election. But our conversation during this particular period will explore New York City politics and Virgin Islands politics as it unfolds, and we'll discuss current events also. In summary, both political parties are beleaguered by internal political dynamics, the end of which will not be resolved when election results are in. On the contrary, when the election is over, the work may have only just begun. In fact, it will have only just begun. And I'm not a gambler or a betting person. I deal with sure things only. But I will speculate on the outcome of the Iowa caucuses on February 1st. My suspicion is that Hillary Clinton will prevail for the Democrats, and Trump will pull it off for the GOP. We'll see. But I'm not betting on it. My considered judgment. I'll be available for our conversation on the first Thursday of February, but we will play the third Thursday, which is our usual schedule. We will play our third Thursday by ear, and I'll discuss that perhaps when I'm here on the first Thursday of February.
Which is the February 4th.
February 4th.
4th is the next
good,
time.
Good. Because during February, Black History Month, I've been invited to do a presentation at Broward College in Broward, Florida, Broward County, Florida. And so I'm going to make a presentation on Black History Month, which will be rather unique, I can assure you. Excuse me. And I'll offer a preview of my presentation during our next conversation on February 4th. And I suspect at that time I'll be able to share my schedule and forecast our next conversation. So with time flying, with our hour just about up, I want to extend my appreciations to these young entrepreneurs who have me inspired to do some work that I hadn't planned on. but it's something that I like to do. And so we look forward to working with you guys on various levels as we move forward. And good night, brothers and sisters. And I will see you next time.
February 4th, to be
February
exact.
4th,
8 p.m. until.
8 p.m. Conversations with Gary James. Peace and blessings.
All right. Our guest tonight, author Gary James. He hails from St. Croix, Virgin Islands. I want to thank you again for coming out. He's been here from the very beginning. This is where are we at now? We're at season 2, episode. Keeping track still on that?
6.
Episode 6. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that just concluded. He'll be back on February 4th for season 2, episode 7. That's right. So real quick, Soup, I want to say that it's your Perspective talk show every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Our website, most importantly, streaming live from the VI.com. We're in a high-tech, low-tech studio. What else, Soup? Moving straight forward up. This show's mission is just to inform, entertain, and empower everyone. Soup, any final words?
Gary, again, thank you very much. Continue the good work that you're doing, my brother. We appreciate it.
You guys continue to inspire me, and you got it.
All right. One perfect love. Everybody have a safe and wonderful weekend.
That's right. I just want to say one perfect love is our prayers and his blessings. When you put it all together, you get one perfect love. We'll see you guys on Tuesday. We'll be blasting off again with more fun stuff. All right. Be safe. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you Tuesday. Peace.